Hello everyone and welcome back to part 3 of my creative writing mini-series. In this episode we are looking at common stereotypes in fiction and how they can impact a story. Let's start at the beginning by explaining what is a stereotype. Put very simply, a stereotype is a generalized belief about a group of people or thing. When applied to people, these generalizations are often inaccurate and are applied to every individual within the group, regardless of their unique characteristics.
It's worse than an Italian guy describing someone's sexuality.
Anyway, my brother Louis, he's a little off to the side, you know? Foofy. Up to the knuckle. He's a backwards mechanic. He likes to play in the dirt.
You mean gay?
Oh, Mama! Not on Peter!
Stereotypes can be conscious, explicit, or unconscious, implicit. Explicit stereotypes are openly acknowledged. For example, the idea that all people of the older generation are terrible at using modern technology.
Dad, why'd you buy a new computer? Your old one was so good. Because this one have calendar application. Okay, they all do. Well, what is it, a MacBook Air? Air? No, it's not Nike, it's Apple computer.
As previously mentioned, stereotypes are not just restricted to people either. One common one you've probably heard growing up is that cats love drinking milk and mice love to eat cheese, when in actuality, most animals can't digest dairy products such as cow's milk. In fact, most cats are lactose intolerant as they stop producing lactase as they get older and stop needing to have milk from their mothers. Lactase is the enzyme needed to break down lactose, and though humans can produce it their entire lives, most animals can't. Implicit stereotypes often operate on a subconscious level, influencing our thoughts and actions without our awareness. For instance, the riddle about the surgeon reveals how implicit gender stereotypes can hinder logical thinking. Some examples of common stereotypes in fictional stories might be the mad scientist or the evil stepmother. Most of us can think of at least one story off the top of our head with at least one of these popular stereotypical characters. Stereotypes can be positive or negative, but even the seemingly positive ones can be harmful. The problem is they limit individuals to narrow expectations, ignoring the diversity within groups. An example of this would be the stereotype of a woman as a warm and maternal figure can also lead to the other stereotype of women being overly emotional and weak. Whilst researching for today's topic, I found many articles seem to agree that whilst often harmful and inaccurate, stereotypes can be a powerful literacy tool when used carefully. Authors should avoid relying on stereotypes for characterizations, as this can be taken as lazy, cliché, and offensive. But here lies the conundrum. Nancy Kress from the Writer's Digest brought up some fantastic points in her article, which I've linked in the description. We've all likely read about the classically large motherly woman who likes to feed her family, or the gruff countryman, or even the foul-mouthed gangman. They're cliché, sure, but these people do exist in real life. This is what Kress describes as a literal double whammy. If you put this sort of character into your book, everyone will accept them as real, but you risk half your readers being bored because they've seen that character before in countless other stories. In addition, if the stereotype is at all negative, it can be read as a jab against an entire group of people. Now your audience will not only be bored, but they might be angry at you for perpetuating damaging prejudices. But if you make your characters too outlandish, your readers may reject them for not being relatable or understandable. So, what exactly are you supposed to do then? If you want those characteristics for your character, then I would say have them in, but incorporate additional details. Your gruff countryman in a plaid shirt and a 5 o'clock shadow. What else does he have to offer? I mean, you could make him a llama. Everything is better with llamas.
For hands. Give me a break.
Carl!
My stomach was making the rumblies
Carl!
that only hands would satisfy.
What is wrong with you, Carl?
Well, I kill people and I eat hands. That's two things.
Okay, maybe not. That's okay. How about he stays a human, but he has an irrational fear of teapots stemming from a childhood memory of boiling tea and an emotionally abusive aunt? That's a bit dark, actually. Okay, maybe he hates his plaid shirts, but he wears them because he knows his neighbor Karen hates them and he's still salty about the time she insulted the way he holds a hatchet. A little normacy and a little weirdness often make for an excellent character. Some of my favorite characters include Hilda from Hilda and Coraline from Coraline. On the surface, they both seem like the usual young child in an unknown world. Whereas some child characters can become annoying or overly exaggerated, I didn't find that the case with these two. Hilda didn't grow up with other children. Though still clearly very young, she views the world with so much more wonder and excitement. Challenging obstacles aren't something to be avoided for her, but rather something to be actively pursued and overcome. Her thirst for danger often lands her in trouble, but it's also how she overcomes the problems that she tackles. Neil Gaiman writes a very interesting version of a child in Coraline. In the books, she actually is quite a bit younger than the version we have in the movie, but she never comes across as annoying or whiny. He somehow manages to balance her childlike view of the world with a realistic fear and tenacity of facing down an unknown enemy all alone. If you haven't read the book version, I actually would really recommend it. Here's an opinion that will probably get me shot, but I actually don't love the character of Violet from The Fourth Wing. Don't get me wrong, she's not awful. She has a sharp mind and is quick on her feet, but her character is constantly described as physically weak and sickly. She's smaller and weaker than everyone else. She's the underdog, so naturally she's constantly targeted and bullied. She's also related to a family of successful dragon riders, so of course everyone has very high expectations of her. She's the runt of the litter, the underdog that no one thinks can win, which is in and of itself a fairly overused stereotype for a protagonist, and in particular, a heroine. Her physical weakness is constantly something she has to overcome, and though she often does, it comes with a great deal of complaining and confusion over simple questions and simple situations. I really don't love the trope of a character constantly missing the point or not noticing the obvious. It's very difficult to expand on without actually revealing any spoilers. Again, I'm not saying Violet is a bad character, she just doesn't make it into my top 10. I did still like the books quite a bit, but that was mainly because of the wide variety in the cast of characters around her. They feel like real people with real personalities. Just on another quick side note, even though I know this is probably an unrelated tangent, shut up, it's my video and I'm going to have a short whinge. I do not care if the man in front of me is built like Leonidas himself and wearing nothing but a neon G-string with rainbow fucking tassels. If I am about to die standing on a cliff surrounded by enemies and bleeding out, my brain is not going to notice. The amount of times Violet Sorrengail gets distracted by the male form whilst she is literally on the brink of being murdered makes me question if she should be on some kind of medication. Look, I've been a horny teenager. I've seen my partner in leathers. Hey man, I get it. I'm still not gonna die just because I can't put my eyes back in. Moving on. Some examples of characters that represent terrible stereotypes, the easiest visual examples can be taken from none other than Disney. Yeah, shocking, I know. Could never have seen that coming. The most recent years, the characters of Speedy Gonzales and Pepe Le Pew have both come under fire. Speedy Gonzales, the lightning-fast mouse in the iconic yellow sombrero, is a beloved figure in Mexican culture. This Warner Brothers Looney Tune character has captured hearts worldwide with his quick wit, agility, and exaggerated Mexican accent.
You don't catch me. You better put back all my friends where you got him.
However, Speedy's popularity has also been overshadowed by controversy. In 1999, Cartoon Network banned the character, citing concerns about the negative stereotypes of Mexican people. While Speedy himself wasn't necessarily the primary issue, the lazy and drunken portrayal of his fellow mice certainly drew some criticism. Interestingly, much of the backlash against the ban came from the Hispanic community itself. Many viewed Speedy as a symbol of pride and a cultural icon rather than a harmful stereotype. In response to the controversy, Cartoon Network reinstated Speedy, but significantly reduced his airtime. Today, the cartoons featuring Speedy are preceded by a disclaimer acknowledging the outdated stereotype they may contain. The same can't really be said for our other animated example, Pepe Le Pew, who continues to receive striking criticism. For those who've never watched the character or just don't particularly remember, Pepe Le Pew is a French skunk who often spends his episodes chasing after Penelope Pussycat, a black cat who miraculously manages to find herself with a white stripe in every episode. Convinced that she is also a skunk, he is infatuated with her and she is repulsed by him. The episodes are generally spent with her desperately trying to escape his advances. This has two fairly obvious glaring issues. On the first hand, you have the stereotype of the smitten, stinky, cheese-loving Frenchman, and then of course there is the rather obvious unwanted sexual advances. There are many that believe that his character promoted culture. This isn't a new criticism either. Pepe Le Pew has found himself in and out of hot water for decades. These days, he's a rare sight in the cartoons and was pointedly not brought back in the newest rendition of Space Jam due to the resurfacing discussion on the character, even though he was originally planned to make an appearance in this sequel. Let's take a step back from this incredibly broad topic and move on to a different angle. Stereotypes are not just limited to the characters themselves. In the context of books, they can also be related to themes or even certain situations. Panic attacks are a popular and ever-occurring trope. Writers have to choose how their characters display symptoms of panic attacks, as well as how onlookers and crowds can interact with them. Sometimes these situations are described really well with the accurate use of terminology and depictions. Other times, not so much. The stereotype that you can slap some sense into someone to snap them out of a panic attack is a good example of a not so great stereotype. For those who are curious, if you see someone having a panic attack, maybe don't violently shake them or smack them in the face. I feel like I really shouldn't need to say that, but here we are. Stereotypes can reinforce prejudice ideas, alienate readers, and make a story feel outdated. However, stereotypes can also be used to create complex worlds, provide conflict, and develop characters. By subverting or exaggerating stereotypes, writers can challenge harmful generalizations and offer social commentary. It's important to use them thoughtfully and responsibly, ensuring that they serve a meaningful purpose within your narrative. Thank you for joining me once again on a very small look onto a very massive topic. I've included some reference articles and creators in the description if you're interested in learning more. Thanks for sticking around. Until next time.